Number 10. The Nile perch. The Nile perch is big and hungry, and not really a fish you want to encounter when taking a little dip. It's a giant among fishes, reaching a length of up to 1.8 meters and weighing up to 25 kilos. Nile perch can be instantly recognized by their sheer size. Silver with a blue tint coloring and distinct set of large black eyes with bright yellow outer rings. It can live in any freshwater body, but it prefers warm tropical waters in Africa. The female Nile perch tends to be bigger than the male, but they're both pretty hefty fish. The species is quite the ferocious predator too. They eat a lot, mostly insects, crustaceans, mollusks, and fish. But they can and will gobble down bigger and bigger prey as it grows in size. When it's not feasting on unfortunate prey, the Nile perch passes the time by reproducing. A lot! Breeding and spawning peak from March to June, and a female will produce an average of 9 million offspring, most of which don't make it to maturity. Can you imagine that though? 9 million! It's also a prized catch for sport fishermen, but the species is also a massive environmental nightmare. Anything that big eats a lot, and when misguided humans have introduced the Nile perch into new aquatic ecosystems, most notably Lake Victoria in East Africa, it has caused catastrophic declines among native fish populations. The Nile perch is now common in the Nile, Chad, Senegal, Volta, and Congo river basins, and has been ranked by conservationists as one of the world's 100 worst invasive species. Number 9. The vampire fish. Also known as the payera, vampire fish are found throughout the Amazon River basin in South America, specifically in the countries of Brazil, Peru, Bolivia, Ecuador, and Venezuela. They can grow anywhere from 2 to 3 feet long and weigh up to 35 pounds. They get their name from the 2 distinct long fangs each fish has, in addition to many other sharp teeth. Their fangs, which grow from their lower jaws, can grow as long as 6 inches. They use these teeth to hunt other fish, including piranhas. These fish thrive in fast-moving water and currents, so they can often be found near the bottoms of waterfalls and areas of the river that have rapids in them. Their bodies are built to navigate these areas, with each fish sporting fan-shaped gills to help them swim strongly, and tough, bony faces that provide protection for their gills. The largest known vampire fish ever caught was found in Venezuela in 1996 and measured 3.5 feet long, weighing nearly 40 pounds. Wild payera fish are known for their aggression and don't let much get in the way of their hunting, so it's best to admire these unique fish from afar. Number 8. The sawfish. Also referred to as carpenter sharks by some, these aquatic animals inhabit both freshwater and saltwater areas. They're named for their appearance, most notably their long flat noses and sharp teeth that stick out in a way that makes them resemble the blade of a chainsaw. Sawfish can get quite large in size, with the biggest of them being between 23 and 25 feet long. Their most common habitats are the marine areas along coasts, estuaries, and rivers, and lakes. The fish was also featured on an episode of the TV show River Monsters, where show host Jeremy Wade was able to capture one of the fish while filming in Australia. The sawfish's diet consists mostly of smaller fish, mollusks, and crustaceans. Their long snouts contain sensory receptors that allow them to detect potential prey from up to 16 inches away. The sawfish's nose is covered with little pores that allow it to pick up the electrical fields that other fish produce. The saw then becomes a homing beacon as the sawfish chases down its target. And when the sawfish finds its target, it then drives its long, sharp nose through them like Vlad the Impaler. Even more disturbing is that some sawfish are so strong that they can slash with enough force to cut their prey clean in half. You wouldn't want to get in their way. Sadly, the sawfish have experienced a mass decline in population over the course of the past few decades due to overfishing. Many people hunt the sawfish for their fins and teeth, which has rendered them listed as a critically endangered species by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, though 2 strongholds of their population exist in Florida and Northern Australia. Number 7. The electric eel. Electric eels are a quite well-known species in the animal kingdom, but that doesn't make them overrated. These interesting eels are one of the few species of aquatic animals that have the ability to generate electric currents on their own. They often grow to an average length of 6 feet 7 inches, and most weigh in at about 44 pounds in total. Electric eels also have a long fin that extends from their head all the way to the end of their tail. They also breathe air, which means they don't have any gills like most other fish do. In terms of how the eels are able to produce electricity from their bodies, they have 3 separate organs that allow for this process to happen: the main organ, the Sax's organ, and the hunter's organ. These organs give the eels the ability to produce both low and high voltage electric currents. When the eel finds prey or is facing a threat, they send a signal from their nervous system to the electrolytes that make up these organs, which in turn opens ion channels and creates a current that resembles that of a battery. This lets the eels both stun their prey and control their nervous systems as well, holding the eel to an advantage. They have around 6,000 cells that produce this electricity. They can generate a power of 600 volts, which is 5 times stronger than the electricity generated in the standard US wall socket. The eels can be found in the Amazon and Orinoco rivers, as well as swamps, smaller rivers, and creeks throughout that general area of South America. Did these facts about electric eels shock you? Haha! Let us know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 6. The African tigerfish. Like their name hints to, the African tigerfish is found in Africa, and it's the fastest freshwater fish in Africa. They are sometimes compared to the South American piranha due to their similar behaviors and hunting styles. Tigerfish can be recognized by their streamlined bodies and pointy, razor-sharp teeth. Similar to piranhas, they hunt in groups and are able to use their strength in numbers to take down various large prey. In fact, some tigerfish have even been observed to jump out of water and catch birds in flight, making them one of the only freshwater fish to do so. They rarely attack humans, but they do have a nasty bite, so watch your fingers and toes. Tigerfish vary in size and weight depending on the variant of the species that they are. The 2 largest subspecies of tigerfish are the Goliath tigerfish and the Hydrocynus vittatus. These are often around 110 pounds, but the largest tigerfish ever recorded weighed roughly 154 pounds. 5. Giant Amazonian leeches. Leeches as a whole are a species that you want to avoid for various and kind of obvious reasons. But when it comes to finding them in rivers, there are few more dangerous than that of the giant Amazon leech. As the name implies, this leech is truly a giant and is one of the world's largest. It can grow up to 18 inches in length and be 4 inches wide, making it something you really don't want to find attached to your body, especially since leeches are parasites. They'll latch onto your body and won't let go unless you do proper removal techniques, and in the case of this one, it'll be draining quite a lot of blood. The young feed mostly on amphibians, attacking caimans, anacondas, capybaras, and even domestic cattle. But I'm pretty sure they'll latch onto anything they can suck blood out of. The giant Amazon leech is a very good swimmer and is usually found under rocks or in debris in the water. They thrive in these coastal wetland marshes. These leeches are able to camouflage themselves due to their coloration being very similar to that of the bodies of water they call home. Leeches are able to locate and track you by picking up on and following both your movement and your shadow. When a leech finds you, it attaches itself to exposed skin in a stabbing motion with its teeth before biting deeper into tissue. It's almost impossible to feel the initial bite since the leeches produce a natural anesthetic to prevent the pain. In order to remove a leech that has attached itself to you, you need to gently slide your finger towards its mouth and slowly extract it to prevent further injury to yourself. Amazon giant leeches were thought to be extinct from the 1890s all the way up until the 1970s, but were found again by Dr. Roy Sawyer and continue to live throughout their upper South American habitats to this day. Fun fact: a special chemical isolated from the saliva of the giant Amazonian leech is used as a medical treatment sometimes to break down blood clots in humans. Number 4. Freshwater stingray. Often found in rivers in Southeast Asia, South America, and Northern Australia, freshwater stingrays aren't very different from their saltwater cousins. Usually, freshwater stingrays are either brown, grey, or black in color, and some have spots or patterns on their bodies. They also have the distinguishable tail stinger that other stingrays are known to have. Freshwater stingrays survive on a diet consisting of fish, insects, worms, shellfish, and crustaceans in their river and lake habitats. Their venomous stingers are used for protection, and the stingrays have 2 separate stingers on their tails that they shed and grow back throughout their lives. These stingers make them widely feared by people living in the areas they inhabit because of the possibility of injury and infection. Despite this, most freshwater stingrays have peaceful and non-aggressive demeanors, and injuries are often the result of them being accidentally stepped on or purposely caught by people. The majority of those stung by them recover from the sting, although they are described as highly painful and irritating. Very few fatalities are reported, but it is still a possibility. The population of freshwater stingrays is suspected to be declining as a result of overhunting and habitat loss, but several zoos and wildlife centers have started initiating programs to revitalize them. 3. The Japanese giant salamander. The third largest salamander in the world, this amphibian can only be found in the wild in Japan. They live in rivers throughout the southwest portion of the country and can grow to be 5 feet long and 55 pounds heavy. The heaviest salamander on record was 58 pounds. Giant salamanders also live very long lives, with the oldest wild ones potentially living up to 80 years. Their brown and black skin provides great camouflage with the bottoms of the rivers where they live, allowing them to remain safe from predators. They tend to stick to creeks and streams with cold and clear water, especially flowing water with easily accessible sources of oxygen. Since the salamanders don't have gills and need to breathe air from above the water's surface, giant salamanders have noticeably poor eyesight, but they make up for this disadvantage with their highly sensitive skin, covered in sensory cells that allow them to pick up on vibrations in their ecosystem. But just imagine a giant salamander with a cute little pair of glasses. These guys hunt mainly insects, fish, and frogs, using their senses to detect and lock onto their prey. But if needed, they can go weeks without a meal thanks to their slow metabolism. Unfortunately, these unique creatures are facing the threat of species endangerment as a result of pollution and the loss of their natural environments. But luckily, they've become a federally protected species by the Japanese government in the wake of this. Number 2. The alligator gar. Alligator gars are the largest freshwater fish that can be found on the North American continent. The species is much older than some might think. Fossil records date the existence of these fish all the way back to the early Cretaceous period of Earth's history, or over 100 million years ago. They also get their name for a reason, as they resemble alligators with their long noses and long, sharp teeth. They're often brown or olive in color, with tough, protective scales that are bone-like and serrated to protect the gars against predators. Alligator gars are ambush predators and hunt mostly at night, preying on birds, turtles, and small mammals that have entered the water for any reason. Alligator gars are victims of local extinction or extirpation from certain areas they called home because of habitat destruction and the largely unrestricted harvesting of the fish. They now mainly reside in areas of the southern US and Mexico and have adapted to life in those environments. For decades, they were targeted for elimination because of their negative impact on sports fishing. But now they are protected under the Lacey Act, which makes the transport of certain species across US state lines illegal, as well as several federal and state laws that protect the gars. Number 1. The Mata Mata turtle. Found in the Amazon and Orinoco basins in South America, the Mata Mata turtle has a very bizarre and distinctive appearance. These freshwater turtles can be recognized by their spiky shells and abnormally long necks. The Mata Mata was first officially recorded in 1741 by a French naturalist named Pierre Barrère and has since been renamed 14 times. It has a flattened, roughly triangular head with a small horn sticking out from its nose. The Mata Mata's neck can measure up to 3 feet in length once they reach full adult age. That's one very long neck. They typically live in slow-moving streams, rivers, and other bodies of water. Their heads tend to resemble bark, leaves, or plant matter that has fallen to the bottom of their aquatic homes, which lets them blend into their surroundings when searching for food. Their diet consists of mostly fish and invertebrates, and they eat by opening their jaws as wide as possible and using suction feeding to trap their prey in their mouths. Certainly sounds efficient. Mata Mata turtles don't face much of an extinction or endangerment threat and are officially classified as least concern by the IUCN. Number 10. The Flatwoods monster. In 1952, a fireball was seen shooting across the sky. It was seen all across the United States. Confirmed reports came from California all the way up to West Virginia, showing that this wasn't a localized event, a sign of things to come in many ways. Residents in West Virginia, Edward and Fred May, saw the fireball crash on a nearby farm. Along with their friend, their mother and neighbor, they went to investigate the crash site. The area was covered in an odd mist, and a metallic sound of sorts was filling the sky. They went in closer to get a better look, when suddenly a pair of red eyes looked at them through the mist. It was then that they saw the creature in its full form. The creature was 3 meters tall and had a glowing green body. The strange cryptid hissed and started to approach them, which of course led them to fleeing for their lives. They told others what happened, and the people of the small town decided to go out and look for the monster. But they found nothing. There were some remains and deposits that definitely teased that there had been an entity there, but as to what it really was, no one could say. The people who saw the creature stuck to their story, and again the red fireball was indeed spotted all across the United States, so something definitely crashed down. But was there really a creature? Did it come from the fireball? The Flatwoods monster remains one of the more unique cryptid stories ever told, and a creepy memory for that family to try and figure out. Number 9. Giant crab. This image from Google Earth was apparently taken in a very populated spot near Kent, England. The spot is quite popular for crab fishing, so imagine the horror when a giant, terrifying 15-meter wide crab was spotted just off the dock. The image looks incredibly fake, but again, it was a Google Earth picture. It seems a bit more than photoshopped. Between the look of the crab, the angle of it in the pic, the graininess of certain parts of the photo, there are a lot of warning bells for hijinks. That being said, there are people who swear up and down that the massive crab was indeed real, and they actually saw it in the waters before it scuttled away. To be clear, there are some pretty big crabs in the world. There's one off the coast of Japan that is 3.6 meters wide when its legs are spread out. Yes, this crab would be 4 times that in size, but still it's not impossible given there are mammoth creatures out there in the world. It's just unlikely that it was caught by Google Earth, despite what many would claim. What do you think? Is there a giant crab hiding in the waters near England? Number 8. Orange Ikan. Now, let's go back to World War II on the Pacific Front, where a very odd monster sighting occurred. You see, at that time, many soldiers were placed in the area known as the K Islands, and the soldiers reported seeing mermaids. But to the locals, these weren't mermaids, they were the legendary Orange Ikan, which in their tongue means manfish. The Japanese soldiers didn't have one encounter with this Ikan, they had several, including one at a lagoon where they saw an Ikan jump onto a rock and it started growling at them. A sergeant named Mr. Taro spoke to the villagers and requested if any of the orange Ikan were captured, dead or alive, to contact him immediately. It was soon after that that the chief summoned the general and to his astonishment saw with his own eyes the lifeless aquatic creature. He described what he saw as roughly 1.5 meters tall, pinkish skin, human-looking face and limbs, spikes along its head, and a mouth like a cup. After the war, Taro and others went back to the islands to try and find proof of the orange Ikan, but they were never able to get anything definitive. Yet, think about this. They were so convinced that they were real that they were willing to go back after the war to try and find them. That doesn't happen unless they truly believed in what they saw. Do you believe the soldiers really saw these strange mermaid-like creatures? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 7. Cornfield creature. This story comes from a man who used to work at a cheese factory in Minnesota. He worked late nights, and sometimes the job was done early and the workers were allowed to horse around in order to pass the time. One night at around 3 a.m., he was looking at the cornfield with the lights of his truck on. He said he likes being out at night, and he saw some bats flying around. But then, he saw something else. I looked down at the edge of the cornfield. Something was moving there. It was the size of a small child and very, very skinny. Pale, with something that looked like a head of straight, black hair. It moved in a sort of jerky gait, like someone dancing the robot badly. It moved in chunks. Legs, then hips, then torso, shoulders, neck, and finally head. It was looking back into the cornfield, or at least I felt like it was. At first, he tried to rationalize that it was just a bird like a heron, but there was no way it could have been that. And then it noticed him. It moved. Its face still pointed at me. It ratcheted its body in that disconcerting, jerky movement towards the cornfield and went into it. I tried to watch where the field moved as it passed, but the corn remained perfectly still. Something very curious about that sighting, according to the man, is that when the creature came out, all the other animals were silent. No crickets, no other bugs, nothing. He waited for an hour for the entity to return, but it never did, and he might be happy that it didn't come back. Number 6. Chupacabra. The Chupacabra is one of the most famous monsters in the world. The sightings happened in multiple places. Latin America, Texas, New Mexico, and more. It was said to go after sheep and other livestock and quite literally drain their blood. There are some that don't believe it, but there are many that do. Enter Benjamin Radford, who believed that there was something going on out in his native New Mexico area, but he just didn't know what. "This was a much more local mystery to me," said Radford. "I didn't have to go to Inverness or Borneo, it was right here in my backyard." He went on a mission to find out the truth behind the creature, one way or the other, even finding out the original person who's told the story, Madeline Tolentino. Radford was determined to find out what it is, while also being respectful of both science and myth. "I was of course initially skeptical of the creature's existence," he said. "At the same time, I was mindful that new animals have yet to be discovered. I didn't want to just debunk or dismiss it. If the Chupacabra is real, I wanted to find it." After finding DNA from the Chupacabra's victims, he confirmed what many others had suspected. There wasn't a monster per se, but rather various creatures like dogs and coyotes suffering from a bad case of mange that made them lose their fur in such a way that they became unrecognizable. Still, even with this evidence, the legend persists. Do you believe in the Chupacabra? Number 5. The Yeti. For centuries, people have been searching for the legendary Yeti, and now in an unceremonious tweet, the Indian Army claims to have found evidence of the mythical Himalayan monster. In 2019, the verified Twitter account of the Indian Army's Additional Directorate General of Public Information tweeted a picture of what it claimed were Yeti tracks in the snow. The post, which was accompanied by 3 pictures of footprints and a group photo which appeared to be the expedition group, said this with the tweet: "For the first time, an Indian Army mountaineering expedition team has sighted mysterious footprints of mythical beast Yeti. This elusive snowman has only been sighted at Makalu Barun National Park in the past. The prints were seen on April 9th close to Makalu Base Camp, an isolated mountainous area between Nepal and Tibet, allegedly measuring 81 centimeters by 38 centimeters. And not surprisingly, the tweet prompted all kinds of responses on social media, with many rebuking the Indian military for propagating theories previously debunked by science. Others made jokes about the tweet, with the hashtag Yeti skyrocketing. The Indian Army provided no further evidence of its find, and have not replied to CNN's request for comment. There has also been plenty of other shows on various networks, including accredited networks like Discovery Channel, that have gone on to try and prove that the Yeti exists. The problem is that while some scientists do claim that there is evidence pointing to something being out there, it always seems to fall apart upon trying to get more proof of it. There are footprints and clumps of hair, but not a whole lot more than that. What also needs to be remembered though is that up on mountains you can have visibility problems and oxygen problems, more than enough to cause you to see things that you think are there, but likely aren't. Do you think the Indian Army really saw Yeti footprints? Let us know in the comments below. Number 4. The Florida Sea Monster. There are always going to be tales of unique creatures coming from the sea and someone interacting with it, but for one man named Adam, a family vacation to Florida led to him and his family finding a very strange creature. They went to a beach on the southern tip of Florida, and after a while of relaxing, someone pointed something out. A woman sitting to the left of us pointed past us to our right, asking, "What is that?" We all turned and looked to a surprisingly vacant corner of the beach. There were no people down there, but what was there was something really bizarre. We all got up to get a better look, very quickly forming a crowd around it. If I had to describe the creature we saw in one word, that word would be cartoonish. He went on to note that it appeared to be kind of like a green ball of slime, but also had tentacles and a tail. Its eyes were said to be the most cartoonish element of it all, as Adam says it was almost like a human, and the expression of the eyes made it seem like the creature was disinterested in them all. After a while of staring at it, the creature slinked back to the ocean, and Adam, along with the other witnesses, spent loads of time talking about what in the world they just saw. Number 3. Kitsune. Japanese folklore has all kinds of tales of monsters that are known to come in contact with humans. In 2004, a man named Brian claims to have had an interaction with one of the more infamous ones, the Kitsune. He was traveling in a tourist area on his own and ended up in a forest near a mountain. He came across an old man who told him to follow him. When they did, they talked at length about Japan and the world, until eventually the old man departed and told him to go down a trail to get back to the city. The problem was that despite following those instructions, he got lost, and that's when things got weird. As I shone my flashlight around, I noticed an old white fox watching me from nearby. I could have sworn it was watching me with an amused look on its face, but as soon as I shone my light on it, it ran off into the bushes. I remember reading all sorts of old Japanese stories and legends about fox spirits that can take human form, and I feel I may have truly seen one that day. Whether he did or didn't will never truly be known, but Kitsune are known to be tricksters and even demons at times. Was the old man real at all? Or was he a Kitsune trying to trick him into getting lost in the forest? Number 2. Bigfoot. You can't have a weird creature sightings list without talking about Bigfoot, at least a little. Mainly because Bigfoot has been seen by so many that he's become a part of culture. So much that there are entire shows dedicated to trying to find Bigfoot. And some have even turned Bigfoot into a character to be used as a mascot for products, or even characters in movies. But if you dig deep into the sightings of Bigfoot, you're going to come across a lot of weird things. Not all the sightings are the same. Most are found in North America, but some, including some by legendary explorers, were found in South America. Stories also vary in terms of the intelligence of the creature, with some saying it's animalistic, while others saying it's as smart as a human. In 1994, Paul Freeman claimed he saw a whole family of Bigfoot in Washington's Blue Mountains. His video is shaky and grainy, but has been deemed the real deal by so-called Bigfoot experts. In October 2012, a group of siblings hiking in Provo Canyon in Utah thought they had spotted a bear in the woods. They immediately reached for their camera to start filming. Then the creature stood up on 2 legs. The hikers ran, abruptly ending the shaky video. A year later, the siblings launched a Kickstarter campaign to investigate other Bigfoot sightings. These are just a couple of stories. If you look online, you can find hundreds. In theory, a creature like Bigfoot isn't that far-fetched a notion. The only catch is that if it is real, why hasn't more definitive proof been discovered? Number 1. The Loch Ness Monster. Just this month, a tourist from the northwest of England visiting Scotland claims he spotted what he believed to be the Loch Ness Monster. According to the Loch Ness Monster Sightings website, this was the second sighting of the mythical creature in less than 2 weeks. The spotter, identified only as Mr. Veercock, reported seeing the legendary beast and even sketched a diagram of the shape he saw through his binoculars 2/3 of the way across the loch, claiming it could be up to 3.6 meters in length. Just days before this, a father and daughter hiking near Fort Augustus claimed to have seen Nessie moving through the water. Mr. Veercock said that what he observed was easily the length of the handrail at the rear of that boat, which led him to reassess what he saw as nearly 0.6 meters high and 3 to 3.6 meters long. He also said 2 other families saw it too. The Loch Ness Monster, or Nessie as she's commonly known, is said to have been first sighted all the way back in the 6th century, after being halted in its tracks by St. Columba, who then sent her back into the loch. Since then, there have been many reported sightings of the creature, as well as various theories regarding her true origins. A common theory is that Nessie was none other than a prehistoric aquatic animal. For example, the plesiosaurus typically grew to a length of around 3.3 meters, which is right in the middle of how Mr. Veercock described it. Whether there is truly a Loch Ness Monster lurking around is up for debate, but you can't deny that there are numerous people that have claimed to see it. Number 10. Frozen cave lion. In the Siberian Arctic, a very rare and dangerous animal was just discovered. 28,000 years ago, she was a cave lion cub only recently born. After she died, she became mummified and trapped in the ice until recently when the permafrost began to thaw. When the animal was discovered, experts were shocked because she was found in almost perfect condition, looking like she was simply asleep. Her golden fur was still attached to her body. She still had her teeth, her organs, and even her soft tissue. Her claws were still sharp enough that the scientists studying the creature could have accidentally cut themselves. The Siberian lion cub has been nicknamed Sparta. She is an extinct breed of cat that once roamed most of the northern hemisphere, but she wasn't discovered by scientists, instead being found by hunters on the banks of a river in the far east of Russia, who were looking for mammoth tusks. She was also found along with another lion cub just 15 meters away. However, the two are not related as they died 15,000 years apart. The other lion cub is actually 43,448 years old, though it wasn't found in nearly as good a condition as Sparta. According to Love Dalen, a professor of evolutionary genetics working out of Stockholm, Sweden, Sparta is the best preserved Ice Age animal ever found. Other than her fur being a little ruffled, she looks exactly the same as the day she died. She even still has her whiskers. She was only about a month old when she perished, though scientists still haven't been able to identify the cause of death. Number 9. Forgotten python. A woman in Florida made a very shocking animal discovery when she found a huge snake hiding in the bathroom of the apartment she had just moved into. And while this in itself may not have been that shocking, this is Florida after all, the woman's story is made even more terrifying by the fact that she had likely been living with the reptile ever since she moved in. The woman's name is Allie Skipper, and she believes the snake was probably living underneath her fridge without her knowledge. Allie had moved to the apartment just a few weeks before she found the serpent, which was probably left behind by the previous owner. It wasn't a dangerous snake by any means. It was only a ball python, about 1.3 meters long. But still, that's not the kind of thing you want slithering across your face in the middle of the night. But that's kind of how the discovery was made. Allie woke up on Friday early in the morning to discover the snake curled in her bathroom sink, as if it owned the place. According to Fox News, the snake was removed safely without anyone being injured. Even though it was only 1.3 meters, its fangs could still have done some damage to the woman had it lunged at her. Number 8. Ancient animal brain. An incredible fossil just discovered has shown scientists an ancient animal brain from roughly 310 million years ago. This is an amazing discovery because up until recently, scientists didn't think brains or soft tissues could be preserved as fossils, only bones. The discovery was made in the US at the Mason Creek deposit in Illinois. Scientists found the fossil of a horseshoe crab with its brain still intact, fossilized inside of a type of iron deposit called siderite. There is something about this mineral that makes fossils preserved within it extremely well preserved. Only ancient animals found entombed inside siderite have had their internal soft tissues preserved before they can decompose and melt. But what about the horseshoe crab and its brain? What can the fossil tell us about ancient animal brain power? According to Science Alert, the fossil matches up almost perfectly with modern horseshoe crabs. They have found almost no difference in 310 million years of existence. The nervous systems match up, the bodies were built with the same structures, and their brains are just about identical. Nothing has really changed, which is kind of odd, because animals are supposed to continuously evolve. That must mean the horseshoe crab perfected itself early on and has never really needed to change anything. You sometimes have to just sit back in awe of how a creature like that has been totally fine with no evolutionary changes for hundreds of millions of years. Number 7. Extinct river otter. An extinct animal brought back from the brink? Not exactly. But this giant river otter, previously believed to be extinct, was recently rediscovered in Argentina. It happened in the Bermejo River of the Impenetrable National Park. It hasn't been seen by human eyes since the 1980s and was last witnessed in this particular Argentinian river over a century ago. The sighting was made by Sebastian DiMartino, the local director of conservation at Tompkins Conservation. He was taking a kayak ride when he came across the mysterious otter, which he could identify immediately as the very rare specimen. It's always a good discovery when an animal is found that scientists thought was gone forever. One of the explanations is that the giant river otters were living in Paraguay, completely unknown to scientists, and are now making their way back into Argentina. This is also a very important discovery because it proves that the river is capable of sustaining life if the government just helps protect it. Now, this is a lot easier said than done. The river is constantly under threat because of agricultural development and illegal hunting. Still, the giant river otters are making a return, and conservationists have vowed to do all they can to protect them. Number 6. Glow-in-the-dark rabbits. A team of scientists have done the unimaginable. They have created rabbits that glow in the dark. Yes, rabbits that glow neon green when you turn the lights off. The creation of these genetically modified rabbits was part of an effort to treat dangerous illnesses. These glowing rabbits were produced by scientists at the University of Istanbul. 2 out of the 8 rabbits born were completely normal in the light, white and fluffy, but when the lights went out, they glowed. That's a pretty good ratio, 2 out of 8, especially since this is a new genetic manipulation technique. The way it was done is almost as unbelievable as the fact that it was done at all. The researchers injected DNA from a jellyfish into the embryos inside the mother rabbit. The jellyfish DNA worked to make 2 of the bunnies living nightlights. These experiments have also worked on cockroaches and cats. To be quite honest, you would think if they can create glow-in-the-dark rabbits, there's nothing scientists can't do with genetic modification. But the whole point of the experiment was to produce new medicine. Researchers want animals that can produce beneficial molecules which can then be extracted as medicine from their milk. What exactly glowing rabbits have to do with medicine is a little vague. But hey, nobody's going to complain if they can eventually have these adorable things as pets. Would you want a glow-in-the-dark rabbit as a pet? Would you love it, or would it creep you out? Tell me your thoughts on this genetically modified creature in the comments below. Then remember to subscribe to Epic Wildlife for more awesome videos just like this one. Number 5. Blood-engorged mosquito. Yes, this is the exact premise for the movie Jurassic Park, and it's really happening. For the first time in science, a fossilized mosquito was discovered engorged with blood. Testing has shown that the mosquito dates back 46 million years and contains the blood of an unidentified creature inside its body. This is a mosquito trapped in rock with the blood of some kind of prehistoric beast inside it. However, there's been no information given yet if the blood can be used for some kind of prehistoric monster cloning. We can only wait and hope. The discovery was made in northwestern Montana about 40 years ago. Isn't it strange that the discovery was made before the Jurassic Park movie came out? It wasn't until just recently, though, that a retired biochemist named Dale Greenwald, who had been on a mission collecting fossils for the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History, came across the preserved mosquito in a family collection. It was just collecting dust in someone's basement. Scientists are still trying to figure out what animal the mosquito sucked the blood out of. The blood isn't quite old enough to be from a dinosaur. Sorry to disappoint everyone. The mosquito lived about 20 million years too late, but it could be from a mammal or something more closely related to a creature still alive, which would make the possibility of cloning much higher. We'll have to wait and see. Number 4. Dwarf giraffes. Scientists are baffled over the new discovery of dwarf giraffes. Yes, giraffes with dwarfism. Researchers with the Giraffe Conservation Foundation claim they have discovered the first known case of dwarfism in giraffes, which happen to be the tallest animals on the planet. Scientists actually found 2 of them in 2 different populations, with one discovered in Namibia and the other in Uganda. It happened during routine photographic surveys to keep tabs on the population of wild giraffes. The first dwarf giraffe was found in Murchison Falls National Park, Uganda. It was named Gimli. Yes, like the dwarf from Lord of the Rings. It measured only 2.8 meters tall and was a fully grown adult. Even though that's taller than most people, it's only about half the height of a normal giraffe. The average giraffe will grow to be 5 meters or taller. And just to make things even stranger, 3 years after the discovery of Gimli, scientists found Nigel living on a private farm in Namibia. He was 4 years old and only 2.4 meters tall, another dwarf. Scientists did a little bit of investigating. They found that both dwarf giraffes had shorter legs than other giraffes of the same age. In other words, they had skeletal dysplasia, known casually as dwarfism. But what's really bizarre is that this kind of condition isn't usually seen in wild animals. Humans, absolutely. Domestic animals, sometimes. But it almost never happens in the wild. Scientists don't know what's caused it or why it's happening now, at a point when the population of giraffes has declined 40% in 30 years. It could be an evolutionary jump to try and get smaller to avoid habitat loss. But again, scientists don't really know. Number 3. New ant species. Now, before you go and dare say that ants are boring, just listen to this cool discovery. 2 new species of ant have been found by a team of scientists in India, and they may be some of the most unique ants ever found. One of the new species is a type of ant that belongs to the Mizoram genus. Now, not much is known about these ants because they are rarely seen by humans. They live in unusually small colonies, sometimes with as few as 30 members. This is incredibly strange because ants normally live in huge hives, numbering in the thousands. These mysterious ants typically reside underneath rocks or in decaying wood. It's no wonder they've been so hard to find, as who would think to catalogue a few random ants living under a rock? The ants were described by biologists as having yellow bodies and living only in shaded regions at high elevations of over 1,400 meters above sea level. Plus, they're so small that they're almost not perceptible to the human eye. It's possible that these micro-ants hold some secrets that scientists will look to uncover in the coming years. They are better able to infiltrate houses as they're so small, so if they somehow multiplied too freely, it could be a disaster. Number 2. Mysterious yard monster. A woman in Florida discovered a shocking animal corpse in her backyard, and nobody seems to be able to identify what the mysterious beast is. The dead creature was found on a Friday. The woman walked into the backyard of her Titusville home and nearly screamed herself to death when she saw what looked like the molted skin of a demon. Kelly Garahan, the unfortunate woman who found the animal, snapped some photographs of it and posted them online. She was looking for answers and described the freakish animal as being about 1 meter long and looking like the Chupacabra. A biologist was quick to comment on the photos and suggest the animal to be nothing but an opossum. But this is a pretty boring explanation. And besides, the corpse was removed and there was no way to tell for sure. Could it have been an opossum? It is possible, yes. But it's also possible that an unknown creature somehow made its way into this woman's yard and then dropped dead. The weirdest part was that the thing seemed to have been dead for a very long time. Its skin was leathery and it looked like all the blood had already been drained from its body. If it was simply an opossum that died in her yard overnight, it would have still been recognizable. This thing looked like a true monster, and even all these weeks later, the mystery still hasn't been solved. Number 1. The most endangered turtle. A new discovery has given the most endangered turtle in the world a chance not to fall into oblivion. The Swinhoe's softshell turtle has been culturally significant in Vietnam for hundreds of years. It's a symbol of Vietnam's independence and prosperity. According to local legend, the Swinhoe's softshell turtle first emerged from the Huan Kim Lake to reclaim a magical sword and defeat the Ming forces of China back in the 15th century. It's a strange supernatural story, but that's the way it goes. The turtle has been revered ever since. Even so, it's been listed as critically endangered for the past 20 years. Then, between 2016 and 2019, 2 of the very last of the Swinhoe's softshell turtles died without producing any offspring. But there is hope for the most endangered turtle in the world. In October of 2020, a female turtle was captured in Vietnam, the only known Swinhoe's softshell female. At that time, the only male in captivity was living at the Suzhou Zoo in China. Chinese authorities, along with Vietnamese conservationists, are now struggling to get these 2 turtles together, trying to jumpstart the population. If the female dies before producing any offspring, this could be the final end of Vietnam's most famous turtle, a remarkable cultural icon. Number 11. Opabinia. When it comes to rarity, the Opabinia is considered one of the rarest fossil finds in the world today. This is in part because this ancient sea arthropod was known to only live on the seafloor, as well as only be 5 to 8 centimeters in length. At present, only 20 quality fossils of the creature exist today. But wait, there's more to it than that. This creature is considered one of the oddest creatures to have ever been born. So much so that when the creature's fossil and coinciding examination of what it looked like was first presented at a panel, the audience laughed. This is because it had a nose that dropped down off its head, and it was used to feed a mouth that was backwards. As if that wasn't weird enough, the Opabinia had 5 eyes on its head and a fin tail. So yeah, a creature that is unlike anything we have now. When examining its body, you'll notice it doesn't have arms or legs, which is why they're believed to have lived primarily on the seafloor, which is backed up by where certain fossils were found in the United Kingdom. It's felt that they would either crawl along the floor looking for particles to eat, or that it would use its fin to slowly move around. The search is on for many to find even more fossils of this creature so that even more research can be done on it. No doubt because scientists want to know not just more about this creature, but how exactly it came to be what it was. Number 10. Platybelodon. Think of what an elephant looks like. Now, what is the most defining feature? Most would say their long trunk, right? The trunk is one of the most important features on the elephant. It acts not only as its nose, but as an arm of sorts which can be used to grab things, move things around, and make calls out to its herd. 10 million years ago, the ancestor of the elephant was walking around with a very different kind of trunk. This was the Platybelodon. The best way to picture them is to imagine if the trunk of an elephant was also a mouth. And I do mean like the length of its trunk was also its mouth. Weird indeed. The characteristic shape of the tusks positioned at the sides of its skull were also very strangely shaped. It was very similar to a shovel. Scientists believe that the shape of the strong and well-built tusks of the Platybelodon was an adaptation related to defense and feeding, including stripping bark, uprooting plants, and defending itself from predators and enemies. Obviously, this is quite different from the elephants we have today, and nobody is really sure how the Platybelodon could evolve in such a way. Number 9. Kaprosuchus saharicus. The crocodile as a species has lasted quite a long time. It was one of the animals that existed along with the dinosaurs, and you might think that back then, they had a similar body style to what they do today, and some of them actually did. But some of them very notably did not, like with the Kaprosuchus saharicus. One of the things that make a crocodile a dangerous threat is that their bodies are tailored to strike fast and first, and not let go of their prey. However, they aren't really chasers. But for the Kaprosuchus saharicus, they didn't have to worry about that, because they actually had long legs, ones that allowed them to chase after prey quite easily. Imagine a croc today with tall, long legs. And then imagine that crocodile in high heels. These creatures lived 100 million years ago, and they were apparently really strong, and it was said that they could not only chase after dinosaurs, but go toe-to-toe with them. That just makes it all the more curious that modern crocs aren't as good at chasing, and instead prefer to ambush their prey. Number 8. Quetzalcoatlus. Quetzalcoatlus might be a mouthful to say, but it's also a mouthful of a prehistoric creature too. This was said to be the largest thing to ever soar the skies of the ancient world. And then when it would come onto the land, it would be massive in height, even bigger than a giraffe. To give you a picture, its standing height was about 10 meters and its wingspan was 11 meters. Usually, the wingspan of birds is much larger than their height, but not this time. And when it walked onto land, it would do so on all fours. Just as odd, it had an incredibly long and pointed beak, yet no teeth. Further adding to its uniqueness, this bird was said to be so mighty that it could go straight into flight without any issue at all. 0 to 100 real quick. We're probably lucky it doesn't exist anymore because this bird would cause problems on the sky and on the land. Number 7. Xiphactinus. The Xiphactinus was a bony fish that grew to rather impressive sizes in order to stay alive. At their peak, they could reach almost 6 meters in length. For comparison, that's about the size of a great white shark. The Xiphactinus were also known for their large, sharp, needle-like teeth. However, despite being able to pierce various kinds of flesh and even rip off scales, Xiphactinus were not known to chew their prey. Rather, they would swallow them whole and let the fish just die out in their stomachs. Kind of like how a dog might swallow his treat whole. An odd combination, but one proven by fossils of the strange prehistoric creature, as some Xiphactinus were found with bones of fish in their stomachs that were almost complete. Despite many fossils being kept of the creature, there's still so much scientists want to know, including its birth stages. Only minimal samples of them have been found so far. Hey, real quick, if you're new to the channel, welcome. And seriously, thanks for checking us out. If you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 6. Sharovipteryx. The ancient world had many flying creatures, and some of them you know very well, like the pterosaurs. But another flying creature that existed, and you most likely aren't too familiar with, is the Sharovipteryx. Not to be mean, but these weird prehistoric creatures were not exactly the most efficiently designed. Their anatomy is actually somewhat of a mystery. It was about a foot long, with 4 appendages which seem to have possessed thin flaps of skin like wings. The 2 forelimbs were very short. The rear limbs were a lot longer. The result is an odd-looking creature that makes one wonder how it got to be that way, and why and how it actually functioned. The belief is that the front 2 legs helped it to jump so it could fly, but in truth, scientists don't know if flying was its thing. Some suspect it was more of a glide. Not surprisingly, the Sharovipteryx was in a class of its own. Number 5. Metridiochoerus. The Metridiochoerus is basically a very strange-looking prehistoric warthog. The two are very similar. Imagine a prehistoric Pumbaa, sort of. Its tusks weren't exactly like the tusks we see on warthogs today though. Instead of 2 tusks, the Metridiochoerus had 4 enlarged tusks that grew from the upper jaw, extending out to the sides while also curving upwards. Another similar detail with modern warthogs is that they both seem to be omnivores. Scientists learned this from the complicated structure of the fossilized teeth, which would have been suitable for a variety of different foods rather than a specific purpose. In terms of size, it was about 1.5 meters long, which is honestly pretty big for a warthog, and probably why it was named the giant warthog. The Metridiochoerus would eventually die out in its native land of Africa, though its descendants were able to live on, albeit with less tusks and size. Number 4. Dunkleosteus. The Dunkleosteus was a prehistoric fish that scientists and paleontologists believe may have had the most powerful bite on the Earth in its time. In fact, some think it had the most powerful bite ever. Research on the fish has made scientists think it had the raw biting power of a T-Rex. Sometimes they are known as the Tyrannosaurus rex of the seas. One of the coolest facts about this ancient fish, however, is just how strong and powerful their bite was. Scientists have done some research and have crunched the numbers and estimate it could have generated up to 8,000 pounds of bite force per square inch on its victims. For comparison, a crocodile has a bite force of around 3,700 pounds a square inch. The Dunkleosteus were the apex predators of their habitat. They were 10 meters in length and weighed 4 tons, making them a massive and ferocious creature and pretty close to the top of the food chain. The Dunkleosteus was also impressively armored from top to bottom with extremely thick skin. Its skin was about 5 centimeters thick, in fact. Dunkleosteus fossils have bite marks that match their own jaws. This suggests they might have even been cannibals. Number 3. Megatherium. When you think of sloths, you're not exactly picturing the most intense or massively powerful of creatures, right? The catch here is that in the Ice Age, sloths had much more active and aggressive tendencies, as well as being absolutely enormous. A great example of this is the Megatherium. These ground sloths could actually grow to be up to 6 meters long, which is longer than most land creatures today, including elephants. Another unique feature these sloths had were tails, which they used to help fend off predators who got a little too close. That's another thing you don't exactly expect sloths to do: fight back. Making them even stranger, the Megatherium also had giant claws, as well as a very thick skin, making it pretty hard to take out. The Megatherium lived primarily in South America, and despite their offensive capabilities, they were herbivores. Scientists also believe these giant sloths were good at swimming, digging, and more. So how did the Megatherium transform into the slow and adorable sloths we have today? Perhaps Mother Nature just decided they didn't need to be so fierce anymore. Considering just how much they've changed, it seems bizarre that they're connected in any way. Number 2. Dinocheirus. Have you ever heard of a bird-mimic dinosaur? If not, then prepare to learn about a species known as the Dinocheirus. This bird mimic was a dinosaur that looked like a bird and even had feathers all over its body. But it was very long, weighed up to 7 to 10 tons, and walked upright in a way that was similar to many land dinosaurs. The Dinocheirus was a mystery for quite some time among researchers and scientists, mainly because there were only partial bones found of the beast. Specifically, they found massive arms that seemed to indicate that they were not the usual feathered creature of the era. The Dinocheirus is believed to have been 3 times as long as its cousins, which puts it at about 18 meters long. This was realized after more bones of the creature were found in 2015. The name Dinocheirus actually means terrible hand. Its arms were the first bones found, and they were pretty massive at nearly 2.5 meters. It's believed the Dinocheirus only ate plants, which makes you wonder why it evolved its big hands and arms like it did. Maybe it wanted to show off. Either way you look at it though, this is one creature who definitely stands out in the ancient world, and it's honestly not that surprising that other birds didn't follow in its proportions. Number 1. Helicoprion. The Helicoprion might just be one of the strangest and unusual sharks to ever be born into this world, and that's saying something given some of the sharks out there. But one look at this prehistoric beast and you'll see why this is: its mouth. As you can see, the Helicoprion was a shark that had a mouth that went inward, making it resemble a circular saw of sorts. What has made this so special in terms of the shark community is that no other shark in the past or in the present has had this kind of special mouth. Yes, there are saw sharks, but those are ones that have flat noses that act like saws, whereas this one is a buzzsaw of sorts in terms of appearance. The helicoprion wasn't too big. Its average size was about 4.5 meters, which actually puts it on the small side of shark sizes. However, despite its small size, it was very endurant, as it was one of the 10% of life on Earth to have withstood the Permian-Triassic extinction. But what might be the most ironic thing about this shark is that there is still some debate about what it ate and whether it was as vicious a predator as other shark species, despite its looks. But many still focus on its mouth because it looks like something out of a fantasy or horror novel. And yet we know via fossils that this was indeed how it looked. Yet the question still remains, how did such a mouth eat dinner? Number 10. Alien creature. Imagine going fishing only to uncover something that's never been seen anywhere on Earth before. That's right. A teenager on a fishing trip in Mexico recently caught something that was described as an alien creature. The team was fishing off the coast of Cabo San Lucas when he reeled in the disturbing animal. The pictures uploaded online of the teenager and his weird catch are definitely real, but a bit of investigation revealed that he didn't actually catch an alien. He got something even stranger. Even stranger than an alien? Well, this might have actually hit that mark. The pale, sunburnt animal he reeled in was in fact an albino shark. This is very rare in the animal kingdom and a once-in-a-lifetime catch. Even the fishing guide, who had been in the business for 25 years, didn't know what it was. This is basically a shiny Pokemon. It wasn't until much later that David Ebert from the Pacific Shark Research Center identified the beast as an albino swell shark. These types of sharks are common off the coast of Mexico where the young teen was fishing. However, not even the shark expert had ever seen an albino version. Albinism is pretty rare in animals, and finding a rare species with a rare condition? Forget about it! For all we know, this could be the only albino swell shark in the world. The swell shark got its name because it swells its body up like a pufferfish when it feels threatened. It also fell victim to the mortal enemy of the albino, the powerful rays of the sun. Without sunscreen, it was seriously damaged by the sunlight, as it had been clearly roasted by the light and its back was all red and blistered. Number 9. Monster bullfrog. A man in South Texas captured the most monstrous bullfrog you've ever seen in your life. This thing wasn't exactly scary unless you're the size of a fly, but it was certainly freaky. Marcus Rangel posted the photos of him and his monstrous catch on Facebook, immediately getting attention from all across the country. According to ABC News, Marcus captured the huge bullfrog in a pond completely by accident while trying to reel in some fish. He even claimed to have caught 3 of the massive beasts in a single week. How big was this huge frog? According to the lucky fisherman, it weighed an outstanding 6 kilos. It was so big that it looked more like a space alien than a frog. Some people even refer to the giant bullfrog as Godzilla's cousin. However, there has been some doubt shared over the authenticity of the huge bullfrog. It needs to be evaluated by scientists first, because the biggest bullfrog known to science is the Goliath bullfrog from West Africa, which only grows to be 3 kilos. Either this guy really did catch the biggest frog in the world, or he's lying about the weight of it. Number 8. Flying dragon. A man in China claims to have captured a flying dragon on camera. That's right, a literal dragon with wings flying through the sky. And while this might seem like the most amazing thing ever captured, ever, others say the man is lying. According to the original story, the flying creature was spotted near the border of China and Laos. If not a dragon, some have claimed the mysterious animal could be an offshoot of the powerful extinct pterodactyl still living in the largely uninhabited forests of Laos, where some rural people still live in primitive huts, and where any number of mysterious beasts could still be alive. I don't know if I believe that, but stranger things have been discovered in the remote jungles of the world, so it could be possible. But unfortunately, this is one of those weird discoveries that is impossible to either prove or disprove. It's hard to believe there is a flying creature this terrifying anywhere in the world, but if the captured video is fake, it's also a little hard to prove it. In the end, we just have to take these kinds of amazing sightings with a grain of salt. Have you ever seen a creature that might have been unknown to science? Maybe a cryptid like Bigfoot, or something even scarier? Tell me about your experience in the comment section below. Then remember to subscribe to Epic Wildlife if you like this video. More awesome videos are coming soon. Number 7. Giant sea monster. This next terrifying monster is definitely real. A giant sea creature weighing an unbelievable 1.3 tons was recently hauled up from the depths of the ocean. It's believed to be the biggest of its kind ever captured by humans. It was so big that the fishermen needed to use a crane just to lift the huge thing onto the deck of their boat. What kind of animal was it? It was a huge manta ray, and I mean huge, of biblical proportions. The creature was captured by local fisherman Mithun Kunda in India. Before this massive manta ray was caught, the record holder for biggest ever was just 1.1 tons, caught in Peru back in 2015. This one was significantly bigger, only captured because it got accidentally tangled in a fishing net 100 meters deep. According to the report in the Daily Star, it could fetch upwards of $850. That's not bad for a single catch. The ray measured 10 meters wide, which is honestly incredible, because the average that a manta ray grows is 7 meters across. And even though this thing is such a giant, it's actually quite a gentle animal. It filter feeds using its huge mouth, slurping up tiny ocean animals known as zooplankton, usually things like krill and shrimp. But don't let that fool you. This beast could crush you if it felt threatened. Better to steer clear. Number 6. Great White Beast. A great white shark was captured by accident when it got tangled in a fisherman's net after it choked to death. Even though the circumstances surrounding the monster's capture are a bit grim, it still left the fisherman who hauled it onto his boat stunned. Greg Vella was the man who accidentally caught the beast while fishing in Japan. The reason the shark choked to death and got caught in the net in the first place was that it tried to swallow a huge turtle but couldn't stomach it. The massive turtle got stuck in the shark's mouth, causing it to choke and die. When the enormous monster was hauled onto the boat, it still had the turtle wedged in its jaws with blood foaming out of its mouth. The poor fisherman had been looking for tuna, not sea monsters. The shark weighed an amazing 2,200 kilos, making it a very literal monster. But believe it or not, this shark actually pales in comparison to what is believed to be the largest great white shark ever seen, nicknamed Deep Blue. Deep Blue is believed to be at least 50 years old and around 6 meters long, last seen swimming off the coast of Mexico. Number 5. The Metapec creature. The Metapec creature sits on the border between scientific fact and legendary myth. What we do know about it is that it's about the size of a cat. It has whitish skin, an abnormally large head, and it almost looks like a very small grey alien. The creature was allegedly captured by a man named Urso Ruiz, who caught the thing inside a trap for snakes. The creature was witnessed alive inside the trap by 4 people working at the same ranch as Urso, but unfortunately, everyone became scared of the animal and decided to kill it and get rid of it. They actually thought the creature was an alien. And to make things even stranger, shortly after the story of the creature went public, the owner of the ranch where it was caught died in a mysterious car fire that some claim was caused by the aliens who were looking for revenge for the death of their small friend. There is still a large body of evidence that supports the idea that the whole thing was a hoax, including a changing story by Mr. Ruiz. However, the debate still rages to this day over the identity of the mysterious creature that he captured. There was no evidence to rule out an alien, and some believe Urso was coerced into changing his story. Number 4. Mutant Sea Creature. An absolutely bizarre species of mutant sea creature was recently found by a fisherman in Singapore. The creature in question was unlike anything the fisherman had ever seen before. He was fishing at his favorite spot on the coast of the island of Sentosa when he reeled in a moving and wriggling beast with tentacles, something that looked a lot like an octopus, but definitely wasn't. It had tons of arms, it looked kind of mutated, and it wasn't identified by any of the other locals. The people truly believed they had found something totally new to science. It wasn't until a marine biologist from Sydney named Dr. Will Figuera saw pictures of the creature that he was able to identify it as a known species. It wasn't a monster at all, but actually something called a basket star, a type of starfish unlike anything most people are used to. The starfish actually uses its dozens of tentacles to catch prey. It can't move very quickly, but its tentacles are amazingly able to do all the work for it, reaching for any living creature foolish enough to get too close. Number 3. Ancient Lizard. 99 million years before today, a small lizard got itself stuck in a rather unfortunate position. The lizard was most likely crawling up a tree when it got caught in some sticky resin exuded from the bark. That sticky resin is what scientists call amber, and the amber managed to capture the lizard and preserve it in perfect condition until archaeologists found it just a few years ago. But this lizard isn't like most lizards alive today. It's a little bit creepy and a little bit mysterious. At first, researchers thought it was the smallest dinosaur ever discovered. It wasn't until they took a closer look that they realized it was just an unusual lizard. Its needle-like teeth were fused to its jawbones. It was quite similar to a bird, with a bumpy tongue similar to what modern robins have, directed backwards to stop prey from creeping out of its mouth. Oh yeah, and the lizard was tiny, smaller than a bumblebee. Honestly, if creatures like that showed up in my backyard, I'd be freaked out too. Number 2. Pigeonfish. An angler in China recently captured something that you won't believe really exists. It was a fish with the head of a pigeon. And yes, it was 100% real. Witnesses were so shocked when the fishermen pulled this bizarre creature out of the water that they pulled out their phones and began filming the dying fish as it gasped for air. The creature was caught in Guiyang City back in June, and experts in the field believe it to be a grass carp. This is a common species of freshwater fish found both in Asia and North America. But how in the world was it born with the head of a pigeon? The truth is that nobody knows. It was obviously some kind of bizarre mutation. It also wasn't perfectly pigeon. The fish didn't have a beak or anything. Its head was just shaped like a bulb, with eyes on the side of his head that made it look like a beady-eyed bird. This sounds like a genetic malformation to me, but what do you think? Number 1. Most mysterious mammal. Scientists have finally found a specimen of the most mysterious mammal in the world, a creature known as Zencarella. The animal was captured in Bioko, a small island off the coast of West Africa. Up until now, the Zencarella was only known to scientists through fossils. Nobody had ever seen the creature alive, and yet it's been on the Earth for about 49 million years. They came about after the extinction of the dinosaurs, about 35 million years before great apes ever evolved. Zencarella existed back when Australia was still connected to Antarctica and the Himalayan mountains were, well, not even mountains. The animal looks a lot like a squirrel with fluffy black fur, but underneath its fur are lizard-like scales, making the animal incredibly strange. It's closely related to gliders, but somehow lost the ability to fly throughout the years. Out of 5,400 mammal species currently known, only the Zencarella and 5 others can be considered the surviving members of ancient lineages. In other words, it's one of the most ancient mammals on the planet. A living specimen had never been found, though just recently hunters in Africa captured 3 of these mysterious rodents and donated them to science. Nobody knows how many are left in the wild, or if any human will ever see a Zencarella alive. The animal was jokingly referred to as the ultimate Pokemon because nobody had ever been able to successfully capture a living specimen. Which one of these horrifying creatures freaked you out the most? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching. If you haven't already, remember to hit that subscribe button for all the most awesome videos from epic wildlife. See you next time!